Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Ontario chapter hosted student webinar. In this webinar, we will be hearing from a specially chosen industry panel of speakers to discuss their careers and how to develop and review all of your current career options. My name is Tamara Shephard, the Membership Engagement Manager at SMTA. I will be your host today along with Bev Christian, who works in Research and Development with HDPUG from the Ontario chapter. Our panelists today are Cameron Steeves, Ben Bandara, Marianne Romansky, Geoff Zacour, Jason Keeping, and Sutharshan Suppiramaniam with JCI. Bev and I will take turns today interviewing our panelists with a series of pre-selected questions. However, we want you to ask your own questions in real time. While we are speaking to our panelists today, please feel free to raise your hand at any time to ask your questions to our panelists. Bev or myself will then call on you to unmute yourself to interact. If you prefer to drop a question in the chat feature, we will monitor them and read your question to our panelists directly. If we have time at the end of our event, we will open it up again for you to ask any question directed at any panelist that you may have thought of after the fact. And with that, I will turn the time over to Bev and Cameron for our first panelist interview.
Great. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, just want to be sure. All right, we'll start with Cameron Steeves, the fellow in the upper left-hand corner, if it's the same sort of arrangement I have on my screen. Cameron, what is your educational background?
Educational background, I'm a graduate of Mohawk College in Hamilton. I have a diploma in computer electronics engineering. I'm also a member of OSET with a designation of CTEC, and I hold the CID and CID Plus designation of Certified Interconnect Designer through IPC.
Okay, thank you. And what position do you currently hold in our industry?
I have the position of printed circuit board layout designer.
And how long have you been in the industry?
I've been in the industry over 20 years. A good portion of that was with BlackBerry, formerly Research in Motion, doing consumer electronics mostly. And most recently, I've been with L3Harris, which is in the aerospace and defense industry, which is a lot different.
Right. And can you explain what it is that you actually do in your job?
My responsibilities, I have quite a few. I am responsible for the layout of complex multi-layer printed circuit boards, including flex and rigid flex, that contain analog, high-speed digital, power, and RF components. Create and manage PCB documentation, and I have to collaborate with different groups to work through mechanical and thermal considerations. Also providing strong emphasis on design for manufacturability and testing.
Thank you. And what's one piece of advice you were given as a student that has served you well?
There is one piece of advice that sticks out in my mind. It's probably not one somebody might expect, but when I was in my first year electronics at college, I had a teacher. His name was Mr. Morrow, and how can I put this nicely? He could be difficult. He was one of those teachers, and but you know, it was one of those. He was always hard on the first year students, but by the time you got to the end, you really did like him. But I remember one of the first tests that we did, and he was handing it back, and he was not very happy with us, and you know, he handed it back, and I remember him looking at us all, and he said, "They will laugh at you," and we were all kind of a little stunned, and we didn't really know what to think about it, and I think some people kind of took it the wrong way, but you know, I think he was in his way, he was trying to drive home the point that he expected us to come to his class prepared, to be focused, and to always do our best. And you know, that's what I took away from it, and I think it's served me well in my career.
Okay. And what are your most valuable talents and skills?
Well, I think you know, when it comes to printed circuit board design, you know, some of the talents and skills I have that have helped me excel is definitely my ability to work well with others. I have to work with a wide range of different groups, you know, whether that's electrical, mechanical, manufacturing. I have to work with different suppliers. You know, I have to have good problem solving skills, and I have to be creative in my work and get through problems. I mean, obviously I've had to become proficient with CAD tools. I've used a wide variety of them, and definitely, you know, getting, you know, better at those. You know, I've had to, you know, really lean on other people and fellow coworkers to get better at that. So.
Okay. And what knowledge and skills should one develop now to help one's career?
Going back to CAD tools, you know, I do think, you know, simulation has become you know, it's always been important, but it's becoming even important now because, you know, designs are becoming more complex, and the CAD tools are definitely becoming more powerful. And, you know, I do think if you can get experience, get experience with all the CAD tools early, get in on the simulation and know that it's definitely going to be helpful in your career path. Also, you know, a lot of the designs I work on, if not most of them, have FPGAs now. I think firmware developers are highly sought after. If you can get into the coding of FPGAs, I think that's definitely a skill to focus on.
And could you explain what that is? What a FPGA is?
You know, programmable logic board.
Okay, thank you. And what's the most important risk you took and why?
About 5 years ago, I got laid off from BlackBerry, and you know, one of the CAD tools I used there was Zacour. You know, I didn't have much Cadence Allegro experience, and I did find that you know, when I was laid off, that it was difficult. You know, when I was looking for work, they wanted that experience, so I had to really focus on you know, finding opportunities where I could learn that tool. I was fortunate to be working at a startup in Kitchener for a while, but an opportunity came up to work at Ericsson in Ottawa for a 6-month contract, and they were really you know, they had Cadence Allegro, and it would be a really good opportunity for me. Of course, I would have to move to do it, and my son was only 3.5 at the time. This was about 4 years ago, and you know, it was you know, it was something I really had to discuss with my wife. But you know, I went up and I lived there and for 6 months, and got through it, gained some really valuable experience. It led to another job in Waterloo with Molex, and ultimately to the job at L3 Harris. So it was definitely a risk worth taking.
Right. Now I have quite a few more questions, but perhaps tomorrow this would be a good time to open up to students to see whether they've got a couple of questions. If not, I can ask a couple more.
Definitely, absolutely. I would love to. If anyone has a question, please feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself. You don't have to be shy. This isn't a quiz or anything. We want you to be able to meet these people, and we want you to be able to ask them the questions you have.
Yeah, hello everybody. Rajveer here.
Hi.
Hi, and I have a question to Cameron. That as you pursued a diploma, like, is it beneficial that a diploma gives more practical knowledge, like as compared to a bachelor's degree? Because usually a degree is considered to be more superior.
Yeah, what I liked about the college is that, you know, I did the co-op programs, so I got some work experience while I was at college. I think now in university, I mean, I think they do have co-op programs too. I don't know if they had them as much when I was younger. Definitely, you know, I mean, I was going to go back to university after college, and it was something that I would have liked to have done, but sometimes life takes you in different directions. But I would certainly encourage you know, anybody to pursue university after college. In fact, my son He just recently graduated from Guelph University, and he actually went back to Mohawk for a while to get a bit more practical experience. So you can do it either way.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Good question, Rajveer. And just for any of the students who are online who are American, I know in the United States you use college and university interchangeably, but here in Canada, generally speaking, a college is an institution that gives a diploma after 1, 2, or a 3-year program. This is in general, whereas a university, it's generally a 4-year program. There are exceptions to that, but that's how it is generally occurs here in Canada.
That's great.
It's 12 minutes.
I don't know how long did I miss a lot because I just started. So
Hi, Lorna.
a few
Yeah.
minutes.
You're a little late. You haven't missed too much. We've done one interview.
You started 7 o'clock, right?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
We still have 5 panelists left to go. So.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Cameron. I think we'll turn it over to Tamara and go on with the next.
Thank you so much, Cameron. Okay, so now we're going to be interviewing Ben. Ben, what position do you currently hold in our industry?
Hi, everyone. My name is Ben. I'm currently a supplier quality engineer working with Cameron and Marianne and a few others at L3 Harris. I get to work with, let's say, Cameron and his design team, review the designs for manufacturability and find an efficient way to transfer that to our suppliers who are more than capable and ready to build the products that we are designing.
Thank you. So what is your educational background?
Great question. I think building upon Cameron and the question asked by Rajveer. So I started off in community college. I got my electronics engineering technology diploma. Did the co-op program as well. I found the co-op extremely helpful. Hands-on, get out there, work in the industry a little bit, come back, finish my schooling. And after that, I was looking for some employment opportunities, which didn't really come my way right away. So I had to decide between, do I keep the job hunt going or should I pursue some further education? And, kind of weighing a bunch of different options, I decided to pursue education and went to university. And the program I selected at that given university had a transition program, which was helpful. And I was able to get my electrical engineering degree as well. Yeah.
Perfect. So if someone wants to follow in a similar career path to you, what skills do you think they should develop?
Great. So I think Cameron touched on a few, the technical side, the CAD tooling. Your basic, if you are considering the electronics industry, all the analog and digital side of things. But furthermore, I think along the way, what I've found out are some of the soft skills, right? And I'm still learning those in my current role. Teamwork, coordinating meetings, going a little bit out of your comfort zone to meet with, in your case, if you're still students, right, working with your other student body representatives, working with instructors and the staff. And those of you who've maybe already started out in the work field, kind of going beyond your current role, working with, cross-functional teams, and working on projects that might be of interest to you. Yeah.
So would you share an experience where you had to make a tough decision, even if you knew it was the right decision?
Oh, yeah. So in my role in supplier quality, we have to ensure that the products that come through the door meet not just the design requirements, but also IPC and the industry standards. Sometimes when we find an issue, it's a fine balance between, do we need to bring in something, rework it? Do we hold it back and have the supplier rework it? potential impact to production lines, impact to our end customers. So there have been instances where, it was not the popular decision, but the right decision, I think, was to stop something and have it verified or retested. It may add a couple of extra days, but, we would save later on having to rework a finished unit. So that's just one example.
Okay, thank you. Did you ever expect to end up doing what you're doing now?
Oh, okay. I love what I'm doing right now, but I certainly didn't expect this role. Like most of you, currently either in some sort of electronics or technology program, is probably thinking more along the lines of what Cameron's doing, right? You want to go out there, you want to design stuff. But as you'll hear other panelists, we retain some of that education, but we end up kind of working in different roles than what we had originally kind of done our main portfolio of courses for. So that goes with, your willingness to go a little bit outside your comfort zone, learn some other skills, and see what else is out there. Yeah.
So what do you like most about the job that you have now?
Teamwork and problem solving. I think there will be other panelists who will touch on this for sure, but the complex products that we are building, there's no way that one person or two people can do it from start to finish. It's a huge team. In this team and partnership concept, we consider our suppliers who build these complex products for us as part of our larger team outside the four walls in our building. So definitely the team approach and problem solving. Problems do come up. We don't ever wish for them, but when they do, that you have a team that you can go to. You can contact industry experts, and you'll meet some of them here in this panel, and we support each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. So I just have a couple more questions on my end before we open it up. What's a piece of advice that you got as a student that's carried you through your career and stuck
Sure.
with you?
Yep. I love this question. This goes back to my high school days. It was a design and technology teacher in high school who said, hey, Ben, go out there, be creative, right? It sounds maybe cliche or so generic, but be creative can be applied to anything, right? It could be a circuit board design. It could be an opportunity on the production floor if you're seeking a manufacturing type role. It could be a creative presentation to convince your future boss of some new idea or project, right? So I'd say I'd like to, kind of cheer and champion that thought through. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so this next one might be a tricky one, but it's the last one before we open it up. So besides the piece that you got that you have carried with you, what other piece of advice would you give to students or young professionals in our industry?
Okay, don't be afraid to learn something new. Something might show up on your plate that you didn't plan for and initially might look like it's completely out of scope. You might even want to, go have a chat with your boss and say, hey, why am I being asked to do this? So I would challenge anybody to say, hey, you know what? There's a lot to learn here, right? And as you problem solve, as you work with other teams, a little bit of something that you kind of learn, either it's on the business side, quality, manufacturing, design, logistics even, let's say. That's probably not, most of us here are specialists in any of those, but as part of the role, we've had to learn things. So go out there and try to learn as much as you can.
I think that's wonderful. All right, so I definitely want to give everyone a chance to ask their questions. So if you do have a question, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
So could you explain the topic about, you mentioned the skill of CAD tooling, and I think the previous speaker, Cameron, mentioned simulation. Could you give us some specific examples? How can you use the skills? What software you're using for simulation and the CAD tools? So what kind of a project could be?
Okay, great. So more from a circuit board perspective, we use something called Valor tool to check, component spacing and manufacturability of the circuit board design. So when we flow it down to our suppliers, that they can actually, pick and place, let's say, on a surface mount piece of equipment. So that's one set of tool that I'm familiar with. In my current role, I am not a designer. So I'll give this back to Cameron or anyone else if they'd want to jump in.
Thank you.
From a PCB design perspective, I mean, if you were designing, if you were doing DDR routing, you had to do the tuning. You could use hyperlinks. You could input the layout that you've done, and you could do all the timing. You could do all the timing stuff, computations and stuff, and then you could verify before you actually get your board built that you don't have any signal integrity problems. There's different types of tools to do that with. I mean, sometimes when you're designing lower speed stuff, you're not as concerned about it. You'll work through those signal integrity issues when you get the board back. But for higher rate speed designs, sometimes you want to do that simulation up front, and try to avoid having any problems when you get the physical board back from the supplier.
Okay, thank you. And one more question. You have mentioned your college teacher said something new and inspiring. Could you repeat what he said?
They will laugh.
You have mentioned your.
Sorry.
So your college teacher has told you something, right? Like to encourage, inspire new generations. So can you repeat what he said?
He said they will laugh at you, and what he meant was is if when you get out into the real world, if you don't spend the time and you learn the stuff and you work hard, you will get found out if you don't know your stuff. Okay. That's what he meant by it, and it was kind of his strange way to encourage us. That's all. It's something that stuck out in my mind. It's something I remember vividly. So it's something I thought I would bring up. It's just.
Thank you.
Perfect. All right. So we're going to move next to Marianne and Bev. If you have any questions that haven't gotten answered, please hold on to them. We'll open it back up at the end for you to ask any questions you have. Okay. All right. So Bev, Marianne, it's your time.
Right. Okay. Get to interview one of my friends. Marianne, can you briefly explain what it is that you do?
Okay, so I'm a quality manager at L3 Harris. As Cameron and Ben mentioned, we work in different parts of the business. I'm responsible for the quality that comes out of the lens manufacturing part of the business. So it's actually like the glass and metal parts of the lenses, as well as the full lens assemblies that turn into a product. So my team inspects products to make sure that what goes out is at the right quality level. As Ben mentioned, they're pretty complicated products, and so the inspection therefore is also pretty complicated. We're in the aerospace industry, so the standards are very high, and the stakes are really high too. Because our camera systems go on airplanes, on helicopters, on drones, etc. So they have to be extremely robust. They have to operate under all kinds of defense and military conditions, and they obviously can't come apart in the sky and fall down. So really high safety standards, really high reliability and operability standards. And so we make sure that every single product that goes out of here has been, the processes for manufacturing are all really controlled. And there's mechanical processes, chemical processes, and electrical processes that all have to be monitored and controlled. So that's what my group does, and I'm responsible for that.
Thank you. What's one piece of advice you were given as a student that has served you well?
Yeah, it actually came from another student. I think I was a little bit or pretty disappointed with the amount of advice I got when I was in high school, you know, from career counseling and all that. And so the best advice I got was from a student who was a couple years older than me, and he had been working out in industry and then come back to grad school. And he said, in industry, B is good enough. You know, don't kill yourself trying to turn out a perfect proposal or a perfect report. The products have to be perfect, but you know, it doesn't have to be perfect. It has to work properly, because you don't always have time to be able to do something that's perfect. So sometimes done is better than perfect. Of course, now I'm in aerospace where in the end it has to be perfect. but it was really good advice in the beginning, because sometimes, you know, you get in there and you think people want something at a certain level and they're really expecting something at a lower level. So that was really good advice, especially when I first started out.
Right. What knowledge and skills should one develop now to help one's career?
Yeah, so from a technical standpoint, I'm going to guess that a lot of you are probably in electronics field, but in manufacturing, unless you're on more of like, you know, the PCB design side or on electrical design and software side, to make things work, there's always a mechanical aspect to a product. So having a good understanding of sort of electromechanical principles, if you're going to be in the electronics industry, is really important. You know, simple automation, you know, things like collaborative robots, for example. You know, in aerospace electronics, the product technology is really advanced. The manufacturing technology is fairly stable because it's low volume, but you know, there's a lot of opportunities to introduce simple automation. So if you understand simple automation, you know, collaborative robots, or ways of automating data processing, that is really where you know, I see in my industry right now that there's opportunities, you know, for changing the way that you do things. So understanding, you know, some of the business intelligence tools, understanding, you know, simple, very simple robotics would be an advantage.
Thank you. What have been some of the challenges that you faced in your career?
Wow. So, you know, when I started out like a long time ago, a lot of times I walk into rooms and I was the only female. And like a long time later, I walk into rooms and a lot of times I'm still like the only female, right? So, but you know, eventually you get used to it. And I'm sure that, you know, a lot of the students here are facing, you know, similar challenges, right? That, you know, you walk in and you're not part of a majority group when you walk into a room, and you know, I think you just, you know, have to work with people and assume the best when you're working with folks. You know, sometimes you might hear something that doesn't sound quite right. I think it's important to make your viewpoints heard, and you know, but you have to be able to get over that discomfort factor, you know, pretty quickly. So I think that's been a big challenge. When I first started out a long time ago, in aerospace circles, I was also like a lot of times the youngest person in the room. I know it's hard to believe now, but like back then, a lot of times, you know, some of the folks I walk in and, man, I'm like half the age of most of the people here. But again, you know, you have to stand on your own merits. I think Cameron said, you know, your teacher said, you know, don't let them laugh at you, right? So you got to know your stuff. If you know, if you want to hold your ground, so that's really important too.
What's one thing you wish you knew as a student that would have helped you?
how different industry is from school, and also how different it is when, now you graduated and you're at a company and you might have a, a somewhat responsible role versus the kind of jobs you might have had when you're in co-op. So I did co-op when I was a student. It was a wonderful experience. It really helped me figure out what I wanted to do next. And then I went to grad school, and then I ended up in industry. And every couple of weeks you turn around and go, oh man, I didn't think of that, or I didn't know that, or I didn't know I was supposed to talk to this other department or get these guys agreement. And I'd start as a process development scientist, and every time you turned around, it's like, it's things that they never teach you in school, right? And you have to just pick up on the job. So and also, if you're working on projects, you need to go ask for money. Well, I was working on some projects that were $600,000, and then the next one was like $250,000. They just seemed to be kind of throwing money around at these projects, and then you'd want to go and buy something for $1,000 a piece of equipment, and they say that's not in the budget. So sometimes you get really confused as to what's okay to ask for and what's not, right? Because there's these monster dollars, and then you ask for something that you think is, way smaller, and then somebody says no. It's like, and then you have to figure out why they said that. So, if you're just starting out and, you're working on a project or an assembly line, you say, geez, I could use like this better tool. Sometimes you'll be really surprised at what people say yes to and what people say no to. And a lot of times it's just, what's the environment, or is all of a sudden, is there a big budget crunch coming down? Or does somebody just forget to ask for money and now they don't have any for their department? Sometimes they don't have the ability to buy stuff themselves. They have to ask somebody else. So yeah, some of those things that are just part of your day-to-day life in terms of getting your job done can be really, really surprising when you first start out and given a little bit of responsibility.
Okay, two more questions, and the next one is pretty short, and you've alluded to it to a certain extent. How long have you been in the industry?
Oh man. Okay, since 1996. So you guys do the math.
All right, we'll leave it at that. What projects, committees, or responsibilities have helped you grow as a professional?
So when I first started working, so I was working at Celestica. I was a process development scientist, and we were involved in IPC. I think Ben mentioned IPC. So I got involved in committees that were directly related to like creating standards and test methods for projects that I happen to be working on. So the projects I was working on, the test methods weren't all that well defined. And we went through chat groups. So it was, yeah, even back then we had little chat groups. It was like TechNet, and it was all just like text. And we got together, and I found out about the industry groups, and we were really encouraged to go out and work with industry groups. Because if you develop the standards and the methods, then you get to use them, right? And they're to your, it's to your benefit. So I learned a lot from some of the aforementioned, like really old people who are like twice my age back then. So, I was really open-minded, and some of them were very happy to, to share a lot of their knowledge with me. It's a lot, it can be a lot of work because you kind of do it on, like your spare time at work or your spare time outside of work. But I learned an immense amount in being on those types of committees.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Romansky. And let's open it up for the students to see if they have any questions for you.
Please go ahead and unmute yourself if you have a question.
I have a question.
Yes.
Hi. So my name is Clovis, and I'm in the electrical engineering program at Centennial College. And so I was wondering, what kind of skills would a person like me, who is in the technology, electrical engineering part, like what kind of skills would I be looking at for, particularly for this industry?
So I'm most familiar with the manufacturing part of it. So it's like assembly of like electronics hardware. And, you know, if you're looking at, you know, where you start, normally where you start is the first job you get is going to be most closely related typically to, you know, to what you're learning. So in the Toronto area, in the manufacturing, you know, assembly, it's there's still a lot of industry that does fairly simple work, like creating wiring harnesses, for example. So that's, you know, that's essentially electromechanical. A lot of it's manual, you know, like there's a crimping, there's hand soldering for repairs. You know, I mean, a lot of people still do that. But then of course there's the surface mount technology equipment, which any, you know, kind of more medium to larger size manufacturer would be using, right? So an understanding of that becomes a little bit more mechanical. On the electrical side, there'd be troubleshooting skills as well. So for assemblies or repairs, and again, like for my previous experience and where I am right now, on the electrical side, it's troubleshooting, understanding, you know, circuit cards, you know, how do they work? How does it actually make a product operate? So it's kind of, you know, whether you're in an industry that uses electronics or whether you're an industry that creates electronics, you know, there's different opportunities there.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so for time, we're going to move to Geoff next. Oh, no, we have a question that was typed. So let me ask. It says, hello, I have a question. To whom is most appropriate to answer? I'm a recent graduate in game programming. I'm looking for any programming job, but I keep getting rejected. I think I have about 100 rejections now. Any advice for me to increase my chances of getting a job? And that could be open to anybody and our panelist.
Yeah. So I mean, I was recently job searching a couple of years ago. Yes, you're going to get a lot of rejections, unfortunately. And, you know, if it's possible to follow up with any of those places, you know, if you know somebody there, if you have, you know, a friend or an acquaintance from school that you could follow up with and say, you know, what do people normally look for the folks that actually did get hired? If you're lucky enough to have actually been having a phone screen with somebody from HR, typically, sometimes they will give you a little bit of feedback or advice if you ask them, particularly like even at the end of the interview, for example. So that can be helpful, but try to find out somebody who's actually been successful in applying to those places and see if they presented themselves differently, if their resume was different, you know, or there's some key features that that you're missing in presenting yourself, you know, to those employers.
Yeah, Tamara, this is Jason. I'd like to add on to what Marianne said as well, and actually for Clovis as well. I mean, there's also a little bit of a connection. So when you're talking about programming and electrical background, a lot of manufacturing uses test engineering and structure test. So that would use your knowledge of electronics, how the diodes work, how electrical current flows to test programs. But then when you go back to programming, think of it as another way of programming. So instead of programming code to do functions and aspects, you're looking at how do I analyze a program code to test a circuit board, to go through the programs of operations, functional tests for reliability. So there's a lot of ways you can spin your tools and skills to help you open more windows.
Thank you.
Yeah,
so much.
and as a hiring manager, I see a lot of resumes, and you also want to gear it to that particular job, right? So don't just like throw in like the buzzwords from the job description, but do try to really make that connection between what you know and what you can offer the company and what they're really looking for.
All right, so we do have one more question that was typed. Jan wanted to know, do you hire college students with robotic and automation skills?
Hi, this is Jason. So we actually, because we are in manufacturing, we actually have automation teams. So the teams actually look at projects, look at concepts, and figure out what tools, programming, hardware, electrical do we need to put together, but also understand what does the final project need to look like. So there's a lot of skills that need to intertwine for those types of positions.
Yes, perfect. All right, so we're going to move on to our guest, Geoff, now. So Geoff, I'd like to start off by asking you to briefly explain what you do.
Okay, thank you very much, and thanks for inviting me. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so thanks once again. I'm a small businessman. I have a sales company and I sell SMT manufacturing equipment to many of the other panelists that work for large manufacturing corporations in the Greater Toronto area. So I started in sales and I kind of expected to be in sales before, and this is probably getting into the next question. I started my first job right out of high school with a high school diploma. And you know, I'm going to date myself. 1981, there was a recession. So I went back to school as a mature student. I was 25 years old and I decided, I thought I was thinking outside the box at that time because computer technology was in its infancy. My first personal computer was a Timex Sinclair 1000. It had 1K of memory. So I thought I'm going to probably look into this high-tech world and see what's there for me. And I figured I could always be a salesman because that's what I really enjoyed to do. So with that in mind, I went back to school. I went to Seneca College and I took the electronic engineering course that was there. It was, like I said, electronics was in its infancy in 1983. And when I graduated, and I got hired by a company as a salesperson. And since that time, I've opened my own small business and I sell products to many of the other panelists, whether it be process related supplies, but also capital equipment, such as we've heard some of these terms, pick and place machines, that sort of thing. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Yes.
Good.
I'm just checking through the questions, make sure that I don't ask you anything you already answered.
Sure.
So you did check this one, and I think this is fun. I hope it's not a typo, but you checked, what do you like least about your current position?
Okay, well, that's an interesting question because you might not go through school thinking someday I'm going to be a small business owner. And what would the challenges be in being a business owner? Well, maybe I should have taken some courses like management and, you know, how to get along with people and that sort of thing, more business related courses. So one of the things I really dislike about it is trying to manage the people without having really a lot of experience. I didn't work within a large corporation. I probably raised my voice too often, that sort of thing. So I'd say that's one thing I don't like about owning your own business is the people management part of it and making sure you do the right thing.
Okay, so what skills do you feel that you're the strongest at, and what skills do you think students should develop if they want to follow in a similar career path to you?
Okay, well, maybe I'm going back to the previous question. So probably one of the skills I have is I'm consistent. I, get back to people on a regular level basis and that sort of thing. So consistency is pretty important. And I would say again that workplace, I'm not sure what the right word is, but as a small business person, really understanding HR concerns and how to talk to people, that sort of thing.
Okay. So what's a piece of advice you got as a student that has served you well?
As a student? Well, I'd have to say my father was my mentor. And I've always been a student in his eyes. Be prepared. That's my bit of advice. That's what I could give right now.
Okay, well, I've got a couple more questions for you just before I open it up.
Sure.
So would you share an experience where you had to make a tough decision, even if you knew it was the right decision?
Sure. So as a small business owner, unfortunately, I've had to terminate people's employment. And this is something that you struggle with. A lot of times it's finance. It's, you think you really wrestle with it. I've had to fire people that were 20 years older than me or 15 years older than I was. I managed a couple of companies before I actually got into business for myself. So that was probably one of the hardest things that a person has to do in their lifetime.
Okay, thank you. And then what is the final piece of advice you have for the students and young professionals in our industry?
Okay, well, I suppose, you know, you're all wondering what are you going to do? What career path is there for you? And maybe the bottom line, maybe you come by it circumstantially, but I think you want to do something that you enjoy, because you might end up doing it for the rest of your life. Now, can you learn new things and enjoy those? Yes, you can. I think if you put your mind to something, you can do it.
Thank you. So I'd like to open it up. If you have a question for Geoff, please go ahead and take yourself off mute.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so like I'm also like I was find myself quite interested in like wanting to maybe start a small business later on in the future. So my question for you would be like, how, I mean, actually, what made you, you know, start a small business, and how do you go and how do you pick it up to actually, you know, get it going?
Okay, well, that's a great question. And there's actually, I've started three or four businesses in my life. So sometimes it's trial and error. And a lot of times it's accident. Your hand is forced. You have to take a different job path or whatever. And so I started a couple other companies as well. And at one time I started a conformal coating company, and this is a process of putting a protective coating on circuit boards. So you learn those things, and I think one of the nice things about going to school is they really teach you how to learn. So you go to the library and you figure out how to register a small business or how to incorporate your company, which I did at one time. And it's just trial and error, really. And you learn how to learn at school. So you've got all the tools to succeed.
That was lovely. So we have one more question for you before we go over to Bev and Jason.
Sure.
How do you build relationships with people and build trust in order to close deals?
Well, that's a great question. So for myself, and I can only speak for myself, I mean, you have to work really hard. And as far as sales is concerned, it really is a numbers game. And just like the person that said there that they put out lots and lots of applications, they just could keep trying to be yourself, be honest, be dependable and consistent, and people will gravitate towards you.
Perfect. And now I fibbed, we do have one more question, and then we'll go to Bev and Jason.
Okay.
So do you think having a work experience prior to opening a new business is important?
Probably. I mean, it's probably going to happen that way. It's like starting anything new. You're not going to somehow inherently have all this knowledge and whatnot. So you're going to learn from the people around you. I didn't start the current business that I'm in until 18 years ago. So yes, there is an evolution, and a lot of these big companies, as working in a team sort of scenario, I've seen people that leave big companies and they start small businesses too. So there's definitely different learning cycles in your life, and things don't always happen by design. Sometimes they happen by accident.
Thank you so much, Geoff. That was wonderful. So Bev, Jason, I'll turn it over to you.
Right. Okay, Jason, here we go.
All right.
What position do you currently hold in industry?
So currently I lead global operations for ruggedization within Celestica. Ruggedization is a term for the skills to enable electronics to survive harsh environments, such as assembly, cleaning, underfill, conformal coating, and potting, to name a few.
Okay, but in that, exactly what is it that you do?
So it's actually more problem solving. So a lot of people look at engineering, and as you go through schooling, you learn how to solve problems, mathematical, physical, chemical. But when you get into industry, a lot of the times projects come up, there's a solution or there's something not working, and what you have to do is find, how do I solve this problem and get a solution that works? How do I connect with the right people to get a solution, either the equipment, the material, or even other industry experts? So a lot of it's problem solving.
And what is your educational background?
So I actually graduated electrical engineering from Ryerson, but then as other people have also stated, I also completed a business management degree at night school while I was working.
Wow, okay. And what's one piece of advice you were given as a student that had served you well?
So based on what everyone's saying, I actually want to say two. One was, as a student, was always treat everyone with respect.
Right.
So you never know what position you're doing or who's doing what jobs, but every job is critical. And then as I've actually worked my way up at Celestica, people I used to do hand repair with, I've gone and had coffee with, and they give a lot of respect because you've never treated them as less. And then another one would be always be there. So just by being there to be able to be open and positive, I'll give an example. I walked into a meeting talking about business development for Canada, and out of the meeting, I became the chairman for our aerospace development for Centennial College, just by being there and by being positive.
Right. What knowledge and skills should one develop now to help you in your career?
So as I kind of said, is time and project management. So as my role, there are always new challenges that arise, but are mostly commonly not in series, but they're in parallel of each other to current projects, both personal as well as employment. So you have to be able to manage those times for yourself.
And how long have you been in this industry?
So actually, that's quite funny. I've actually been in this industry for almost 20 years now. So I actually started off as a repair operator, as I said. Actually, before that, I started as a student on call. I did an internship. I worked manufacturing, did engineering, then did corporate engineering. I'm now in global leadership where I am now.
Okay, thank you. And what do you like most about your job?
So actually what I like is it's a challenge. So every day I go to work, there's always new problems to solve, new people to work with, but it's never the same thing every day. There's always a new challenge or a new obstacle that comes up, and it just continues. So if you're looking for something that is challenging, you know, electronics is a great world to be in.
And what would you say are your most valuable talents and skills?
I think I just answered that question.
Okay. Okay, well, how have your personal interests and hobbies contributed to your success?
So actually, I was a team captain for several impact sports, American football, rugby, baseball, and hockey. So I learned how to work as a team player and how to understand my team members' strengths and how to help them to overcome their challenges. But the main thing was to make our team even stronger to accomplish various goals. You know, of course, sports was beating the other team, but when you're trying to solve problems is to solve the problem the best way possible.
And what projects, committees, or responsibilities have helped you grow as a professional?
So actually, over the years, I've had the opportunity to travel because of Celestica, as well as the SMTA, to travel around the world, work with different industries, cultures to solve various challenges, and networks to support my growth. Some projects were not limited to Pan-Pacific, a lot of people know, Southeast Asia, Budapest, Romania, as well as main events for SMTA, their annual conference. Some of these committees and responsibilities that I've been a part to cover are not limited to but being a speaker, like right now. I've been a keynote speaker. I've provided courses. I was a local chapter president, and I've also been part of the SMTA Young Professionals and Awards Committees, which is where a lot of this initiatives tonight were coming from.
Great. Okay, thank you, Jason. I think we'll open up for questions from the students at this time.
Please go ahead and unmute yourself at any time or drop your question in the chat and I'll read it out for you.
Hi, Jason. Raju here.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi, and I'm studying mechanical engineering technology at Centennial College. Okay. And I'm seeking for an internship for like after 5th semester. And due to COVID, like it's been like harder than usual. So what advice would you like to give for like a fresh graduate or like student looking for internship, and how to differentiate them from others?
Excellent question. And I think a lot of things we've also kind of said different aspects is be there. So when managers are looking for people to fill roles or to fill internships, I mean, there's a gradient of says, okay, do you have the skills that are necessary to do the job? But after that, it's really, who are you as a person? how do I, between 5 people that all meet the job, what skills or personal aspects that I can link you to or experiences you have that will make you work well with our team? Because remember, a lot of people have already stated is when you start a job, I mean, I'll be honest, I made lots of mistakes when I first started, but it's how you learn from them. But I think that's the key thing a lot of employers want to know is how did you accomplish or get over those situations?
Thank you so much.
Hey, no problem.
Thank you. We have time for one more question. Does anyone else have another question?
I have one. I have a question. Okay, so like the question I have is like for me, right? I'm looking forward to graduating next soon, April, and I was wondering for a person who's just newly graduated, usually you go to apply for a job and you see they're looking for experience, and most of us, we just have the knowledge, but we don't really have the experience. So I was wondering, how do you kind of overcome that?
So sometimes you have to be open, and as a couple of other speakers said, is maybe even take risks. So, I mean, I'll give an example for myself. I graduated, and at that moment, there was no jobs to really go right into. So I actually broadened my horizon. I actually was then serving, actually, it was actually quite funny. So I actually had to write this down so I didn't forget. I actually worked construction. I was a beer delivery at the CNE in Ontario Place, and I was customer service at Woodbine Racetrack, working with horses and people. Those are not my career, but by doing sometimes something else when there might be an opportunity, it got me the personal skills to how to talk to people, how to work with people, how to come to solutions. So sometimes don't look at getting the answer no as a roadblock. Look at it as, okay, you know what? Now that's an obstacle. I need to figure out some new alternatives to try and grow myself.
Awesome. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Jason. So now we're ready to move on to Sutharshan, and I will interview you. I'm really excited. So I've got sort of a loaded question for you, or not loaded, but a 3-part. So how long have you been in the industry? What do you currently hold for your position? And briefly explain what you do.
All right. So before I started, how long I was there, I was like the kid in the company when I joined. So I've been there 13 years. I've worked various other jobs. So my current role, let's just say it's like on the title, it says SMT process specialist, but I work for a big company and we had like 14 SMT lines, like these surface mount lines that populate the circuit boards. So I'm the one guy. So I take care of all of those machines, the processes. I do, continuous support for production. On top of that, I lead cross-functional teams. I work on various quality assignments as well. I ended up getting into DFM analysis, which is design for manufacturing, some other skills that some of the other panel speakers mentioned. Then I got into like BGA rework. I do various other root cause analysis. I had to, learn to manage projects. Then I got into NPI, which is new product introduction. So I do a lot of work with various divisions. Like my company, I work for Johnson Controls, and like it used to be Tyco. We inherited a lot of companies like Software House, American Dynamics. So I do work for all of them, doing design reviews. What else? I take care of all the equipment documentations, like process documentations. I train the operators. I do a lot of SPC, which is statistical process control. So like stuff like we have reflow ovens. So there's certain measurements that need to be taken. We monitor those various quality aspects. There's Six Sigma activities, which is like, cost savings. Like in my job, that, besides the technical aspect of it, there's a lot of cost savings aspects as well. And that's something, I think all students should focus on, just aside from just doing your job. Is a lot of companies want to know, how can you improve the process and what does that translate into dollar values? There's other things that I assist with maintenance, with our maintenance staff as well. What else? I'm just thinking. So aside from that, buying equipment. So in my role, I actually buy equipment as well. So you know, it's not easy. I do get to spend a lot of money, like in the millions of dollars. It's not easy to justify all the time, everything, but because of the company size, you know, I get to make choices on what we buy. There's other things because of all the troubleshooting and you know, experience that I've gained within this 13 years. I get the opportunity to go to different plants. I've gone to our Mexico plant. Usually I am like the volunteered one when there's a problem to solve. I get requests from a lot of divisions I don't even know, but they just know my name and they would say, hey, I got a problem. I heard your name was mentioned in one of the calls. Can you come help? So I just get volunteered into it. It's not easy. It's pretty tough. That's why I'm like thinking, where do I start off and what do I say to you guys? Because like, I'll elaborate as we speak. I'll let Tamara ask.
Perfect. So it seems like you have a pretty encompassing position. So did you expect to end up doing what you're doing now?
So I went to George Brown College. I did their 3-year program and I did a program. So the program was microelectronics. It was advanced microelectronics, like surface mount technology. It was directly related to the job I do. So, you know, I had some professors that used to work at Celestica and I had, you know, props that worked for BlackBerry, you know, research in motion. So they, you know, they taught us a lot. They taught me a lot of the skills. You know, there's various other, you know, skills with like PLCs and all that stuff, but a lot of the stuff is specific to what I studied. You know, having said that, as soon as I finished school, did I get that job? No. So when I finished school, my profs, you know, they made some connections with some of the other companies, and I actually got into like doing hand soldering repair jobs. We did do a course in soldering, like we learned IPC, how to solder, like the right way to solder. So we went in there and, you know, they gave us a board to solder. We would remove a part and solder it back. They didn't believe us because we did it that well. It's kind of boasting, but the school gave me, you know, they gave us that skill. Like they you know, was like 40 hours of soldering. So when the manager heard, oh my gosh, your guys have 40 hours of solder training, like bang, like he just hired us, actually a group of us. And then I was always eager to work in the field that I studied, right? Because I didn't think I want to end up doing repair work all my life. So I spoke to my professors again and I said, you know, Jamie, I want to get into what I studied. You know, is there any opportunities? And then came, you know, another company and he said, you know what, you could get in there, but the thing is, are you okay to take a machine operator job? I said, hey, if I could get my foot in the door, I'll take that opportunity. And, you know, I worked pretty hard. And that's the advice I give I would give every one of you. You know, I went to college. I see there's a lot of college graduates. Don't give up. You'll go through a lot. I've gone through a lot of stress, a lot of challenges. And the thing is, like, not giving up. Like, I go to work, like, even in that repair job, and I give 110%. And, you know, in that job, like, I did pretty well. I went just as a tech. And then when they formed teams, my supervisor actually picked me to be the team leader. I had to tell people who were much older than me what to do. I had a lot of pushback. It wasn't easy, but, you know, it was a role that was given to me based on the way that I worked, how aggressive I was. You just gotta, you know, you gotta be punctual, you gotta be organized, and, you know, you gotta let them know that, you know, you're not just the guy that came to clock in and clock out. If you push yourself and you have to demonstrate, like you have to demonstrate and they'll see that. And, you know, and that's what'll get you where you are.
Perfect. So You've done a really good job answering most of these questions, but I do have one other question for you. You had mentioned your soldering skills, but if somebody that was watching you now wanted to kind of follow a similar trajectory that your career has taken, what other skills should they develop?
Well, the time management, problem solving. I'm just thinking transferable skills. There's, aside from soldering, you know, it's like, I think like even the soldering and various other jobs, you could learn to do the job, but it's like the people skills, and then time management, really, that's, you have to set your, you have to make your plan of what you want to do, where you want to be, and then you have to follow that, because there's always challenges. So I'm just thinking how it's just, I've gone through a lot of challenges. So that's why, like, you know, I start my first job, I go in there and my boss goes, okay, you're going to work with this guy and he's like the most difficult person to work with. That was like my worst day, starting my first job, you know, and I was like, oh my gosh. But the thing is, I kept positive, and I you know, like I said, you got to give you 110%, and the rest of the management, the people you work with, like they'll see that in you, you know, they'll see that in you, and you know, there's, yeah, I'm gonna leave at that.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. So I'd like to open it up for questions. If you want to take yourself off mute, that would be great.
We've stunned
Okay,
them.
we've stunned them. I know we're a little over time, but if anyone has any questions at all to ask any of our panelists, please go ahead and feel free to take yourself off mute. Jason just raised his hand. Jason, do you have a question?
No, just saying thank you to everyone clapping for all the speakers.
Perfect.
I wanted to say myself, like, you know, towards what I do in my role, I found, aside from school, what really helped was, I know I'm a part of the SMTA, but I'm not saying it because of that. You know, when I said, like, I had challenges at work, and, you know, for me to perform the way I do, like, none of us, like, you know, you guys are learning this stuff by the book. You haven't even gone into the real world, right? The thing is, like, with SMTA, because it's related to what I do, like, I read a lot of the articles. There's a lot of people in SMTA, like, you get Intels, IBMs, like everybody, like, you know, all of us here, they publish a lot of articles, and those are the things I would go on there and I would read all these articles, because, you know, I find stuff on like paste printing, because, like, who knows the real answer? A lot of people will give you their opinion based, but you got to go data based. And that's the thing. When you speak in your teams, when you go for your job, you have to do your research. When I went for my job interview, I went on the company's website. I found out their latest product, what they were launching, what they were working on. So when I spoke to that, the boss was, he was impressed. He's like, oh, you know, you've done your homework. And then, yeah, like SMTA, like I went in there, I would read a lot of articles, like you just got to read. You may not like that, but if you want to be successful, you want to get those key points. Like say I did this job and, you know, I only came across like a dozen problems, I'm nobody. But the thing is, when you read all those experiences from all those people who publish those articles, you're going to learn much more than what you do, right? It's like, aside from my job, I even do IT support there. Like, you know, we've outsourced IT. So usually people in my company now, they look at my boss and they go in the manager's meeting, they go, oh, I know the IT guy I'm going to. And they would look at my boss because they know they're going to come bug me for stuff. Just learn a lot. Learn everything you can possibly learn. Don't get stuck with just learning one thing and taking it for granted. You have to be flexible. You know, read a lot. Plan yourself, stick to your goals. Like, you'll come across so many days. Like, I know one of you said you've tried for so many jobs and you didn't get it. Apply, look into that company, see, is there any other job you can land at that company? You get your foot in the door, then you work your way up. And trust me, I don't know if it'll work, but it worked for me, right? Like, if I didn't take that machine operator job, like, I won't be where I am today. So like you got to be very motivated. Don't give up. Just don't give up. Like, you know, like I said, there's a lot of challenges, but that you'll see everywhere.
Thank you so much. Do we have any other last minute questions?
Yes.
Perfect.
Although I was late, are we gonna be getting a recording, a copy of this recording, or?
Yes, you will.
And
Absolutely.
I heard something that there's a continuation. So will I be able to get back in the following meeting?
I believe the only meeting so far that we have scheduled, but if you do have any other questions, you can email me. I did drop my email in the chat and I can get those answers for you.
Oh, okay. So
Perfect.
this is the only meeting?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Perfect.
Well, let's say if we do have, a lot of members on this panel are from the SMTA on Ontario chapter. If we are having another meeting, you can always attend and ask those questions there as well.
Absolutely. I see Clovis, you raised your hand.
Yes. This is more of an open question, really. I often hear this, that, you know, people often say that, you know, it is good to have a network or a professional network for yourself, because these people can really guide you and help you, you know, in terms of going forward in your career. So I was wondering, how do you go about building an effective or professional network for yourself?
So I think Sutharshan was trying to kind of link about that. So the SMTA, as they have a lot of international events, when you go to these events, some of them are even very specific to certain technologies or certain themes. But when you go to the SMTA events, a lot of times there's luncheons. So you'll sit at a lunch with a table, so they're forced to sit with you and you network. You talk, you mingle, and you start getting to know people. And then all of a sudden, sometimes you're even at a table like, oh, hey, oh, you're Bob. I was actually emailing you, but now you actually get that personal connection. And honestly, when I know someone, I've seen them, and then I get an email from them, it's a lot easier to respond because I have that personal connection to them. So then if I was trying to get a job and I know this person, hey, I remember you, you're that young lad. Okay, let me see what I can do for you. So being out there, being connected, it's one of the best things you can do. And the SMTA is a tremendous effort for that.
I'd like to add to this. Oh,
I was just going to say, this has been a tough time because of COVID. Usually the Ontario chapter has 3 or 4, you know, face-to-face meetings a year where you could go and actually do the sort of thing that that has been mentioned. And this virtual stuff makes it quite a bit tougher, but we hope that we can get back to normal pretty soon.
It does. And so one thing I did want to add, because it's hard to get in person right now, if you have a dream company or there's someone that you really want to meet, you can email me. My name is Tamara, and I did drop my email in the chat. It's tamara@smta.org. And if we have that person in our database, I'll reach out to them on your behalf. I'll say, hey, I have this student who's really dying to meet you. Can I make a connection? And if they say yes, I can connect you directly with that person so that you have that at least.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, I see we do have a raised hand. You can go ahead and take yourself off mute. And Grisel? Yeah.
Hi, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm a manufacturing engineer, and I just want to give some advice to add to what everybody has said. Yeah, so I didn't start as a manufacturing engineer either. So I started as a production control coordinator, then as a buyer, then as a planner, and finally as a manufacturing engineer. So you at least have to start somewhere. If you don't find a job, just start somewhere that can help you to get to the job that you want. Sometimes you won't start with your dream job. Another advice, there's websites where you can practice your interviews with somebody online, like Zoom. There's also people that can review your resume or your, yeah. So you can use those tools before you start applying. Another advice, my current job as a manufacturing engineer for this company is on PCBA assembly. But before I was doing mechanical assembly. So I didn't have a lot of knowledge on PCB assembly, but I extend my, I talked with my, the person who interviewed me, and I told him, well, I'm willing to learn. I'm a fast learner. So I joined SMTA. I took all the training classes. I attended the technical meetings. I read technical papers. And now I can say that I'm way much more prepared than I was when I started my job. So that's just some pointers on advice.
I think that's great advice. Perfect. All right. Well, if we don't have any more questions, I did just drop my email again in the chat. So if anyone who's watching today does think of a question, like after they're kicking themselves, please email me and I will try to find an answer for you. Okay. All right. So thank you everyone for attending. And I want to extend a special thank you to our panelists for volunteering their time to answer our questions today. It's really beneficial for all of us. Yeah. So I hope everyone got the answers they needed. If not, again, please email me. Thank you all for being here with us and have a wonderful evening, everyone.